Welcome to Neuroflow, brought to you by the Neurodiversity Ambassadors. Neuroflow aims to foster caring for the neurodiverse, create a welcoming society for all, and celebrate neurodiversity. Today, instead of hosting a guest speaker, we will be hosting a group discussion with our members to talk about the portrayal of neurodiversity in mainstream media. In recent years, as a part of a sweeping social movement, neurodiversity has come into the spotlight multiple times in popular culture. Shows like Extraordinary Attorney Woo, movies like Music, and book series like Percy Jackson feature neurodiverse individuals as heroes and main characters. But are these portrayals accurate? And are they beneficial to the neurodiverse community? We will explore these topics and more in our discussion today. Let's begin with our first question. We've all heard of shows like The Good Doctor and Extraordinary Attorney Woo. How do you guys think that the portrayal of neurodiverse characters in mainstream media aid the neurodiverse community?
So I've seen like clips of the Doctor series, and I've seen some of the extraordinary attorney Wu. And I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, as it kind of shows in like mainstream media that these things are like possible, and these like neurodiverse people can have like these some people would call like extraordinary like abilities, and we shouldn't like regard them as something really different, just as it says, like extraordinary. And as long as there is some boundary of like respecting like those who are like neurodiverse, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that these like types of media exist.
Yeah, I think in general it's good to have more representation, like especially for so similar to things with showing people with different race or different body types in media as well. Like it could be good for children to see people who are similar to them and they feel more welcomed if they see out on the media. There's people who they can relate to. So I think in terms of for neurodiversity too, it's a good way to have more representation and make help children who also have neurodiverse abilities to also feel more welcomed. Feel like there's people they can relate to and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Would anyone like to add on to that?
I don't really see an issue with having neurodiverse people in mainstream media, just as long as it actually is accurate to their behaviors, and as long as they're consulted, like actual neurodiverse people are consulted on those kinds of things. Um, because otherwise things can get kind of out of hand, and if they're misrepresented, it can paint a bad picture of neurodiverse people, and that's just not good in general.
Yeah. So I know you guys have said like during your responses that you've like seen examples of media with neurodiverse individuals in it. Um, so how have series like those like influenced your perspectives on neurodiversity? Like, was there a certain way you perceive neurodiverse individuals before viewing that form of media, and how has your view changed after viewing them?
So how I always imagined neurodiverse people to be was like super unsocial, and I just never actually had a proper interaction with someone who was neurodiverse. But the show I'm referring to is Atypical, and after watching it I just felt that they're like honestly no different than any other neurotypical person. And I was really fascinated by how he was very social when it came to things that interested him, like penguins. And in the show, we also saw several other characters who were neurodiverse having these particular objects or a particular theme that they were very interactive about. Say it were cars or hotels or penguins in the main character's case. I just thought that was really interesting, and that fascinated me because I did not know of that before watching the show, and after that, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's like a pretty big stereotype sometimes that people think neurodivergent individuals aren't as like smart or like they're not as social or capable as like neurotypical individuals. And I think some of these forms of media can show like that stereotype is not true. Like for example, with The Good Doctor, they have an autistic individual who's like a really talented as a doctor, and it shows that they're able to like thrive and flourish in like professional careers and stuff like that, to like combat some of like the negative stereotypes that may surround neurodiverse individuals.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, in like Extraordinary Attorney Woo, I think we see a lot of like discrimination in the workplace and stuff as well. And it's like there's a huge stereotype that neurodiverse people always need so much help, even when they don't. So I think that's also a big thing.
Yeah, and I feel like seeing them in places like they're shown in the media, like you said, the workplace or maybe in a family or a school, it definitely helps, I guess, normalize sort of the presence of neurodiverse individuals. Because I know Ridge High School is like a co-ed school. Like we have neurodiverse individuals with us in the building, but there are people without that kind of experience, and they grow up kind of, I guess, without knowing, or like with a lack of awareness about neurodiverse individuals. And I feel like these forms of media definitely help people to gain more empathy about such subjects. So, moving on to our next question, what are some common misconceptions about neurodiverse individuals as shown in TV shows or movies?
I think one common misconception is that neurodiverse people lack like social skills. I have seen this in a lot of TV shows, including Wu, and also like The Good Doctor, where the neurodiverse person was struggling to like show social skills and like interact with other people. And I think that's like a common misconception. But I know Vivian and I and Hasni, we listened to like a podcast where we were asking Mrs. Conklin like what is actually a misconception, and she was mentioning the same thing actually, that neurodiverse people are often considered as like lacking social skills. But I think it's important for us to really regard the fact that if it is about a topic that they are truly passionate in and they are interested in, neurodiverse people are also going to show interest, and they're going to show like the maximum social skills that they have.
Yeah, Mrs. Conklin was also talking about how a lot of the things we consider to be like social skills are more just like social constructs. So like for example, like having eye contact is like something we often consider as like being part of having good social skills. But for like some autistic people, like making eye contact can actually be like really uncomfortable for them. So I think like we can break down some of like the things that we always expect or consider to be like good social skills, and maybe like consider there's like different ways of communicating and different ways people like to like interact with others and stuff that may be more comfortable for them.
I think most of these misconceptions could like rise from the most normal things that shows portray of neurodiverse people because of the limited number of shows that actually star neurodiverse people. It could be referred to as a misconception that they're portraying in every one of their shows, because not every neurodiverse person behaves in the same particular way that is being portrayed. So I do think that because of the limited number of shows that are actually being cast out and showed to the audience, um, neurodiverse people are at a disadvantage because of the limited like what is being portrayed on the basis of their behavior.
I think that's a really good point. And I feel like even Uyamu, that's like the most recent one I watched, so I'm referring back to that a lot. Um, it refers to like one individual, Uyamu, basically, and the show is basically entirely about her. And since autism is so it's a condition, or neurodiverse conditions are like so different depending on like their cases, I think it is really true. I support Hasni in the fact that the lack of feature or the lack of neurodiverse people being featured on these like mainstream media is like the cause of the problem of like misrepresentation.
Yeah, I would also say like part of it comes from the fact that TV runners need to sort of artificially pump up the drama in any piece that they make, and as a result, they will exaggerate any attributes of neurodiverse people, or at least maybe it's easiest to create drama by exaggerating those characteristics. So, what might start as maybe an actual honest representation of someone, say, with autism, it ends up kind of going out of control and being really, really over dramatic and not at all a accurate representation.
I also think part of the problem is a lot of times these shows don't cast actors that are autistic. Like, for example, in The Good Doctor, the actor that plays the role of the doctor, like he's an autistic himself. So when you have actors that are neurotypical trying to portray like neurodivergent individuals, like in their portrayal, they may try to like exaggerate certain elements or something in order to like make a better portrayal, but in reality, it's like not that accurate or something. So like, I think if we also want to have more accurate portrayals, it's also important to cast actors who are actually like neurodiverse and can actually like portray things like accurately.
So along those same lines, do you guys believe that we should have actors who are neurodiverse, or should we have just better research, more like consulting to neurodiverse individuals, so that the actors, even if they are neurotypical, can portray the characters better in the film?
I think the goal of any show is for the actor to be good at acting, right? So even though the actor is not the character himself, there are many shows and roles that he or she is playing that is different to their particular individual. So it's difficult to find a neurodiverse person or an actor who is exactly like the character that they're going to start playing. So I think maybe exaggerating could be a problem in the future, but when you're trying to play a particular character who probably does a particular thing, like maybe be really less social, it's okay to exaggerate that point, because I think that's what the show is trying to prove by saying that this is the character that we're trying to look for.
I definitely agree with what Hasani said. And I also think that, you know, a lot of the times when there's TV shows or actors who portray roles of neurodiverse individuals, they will get a lot of because of possible, you know, over exaggerating and things like that. But like as that clash increases, I think it actually makes the media industry like more afraid to actions that include neurodiverse individuals. And so I think it's like a honestly, because you know, in one way you don't want to exaggerate, but at the same time, a lot of the times actors will be afraid to take on like these type of roles because they don't want to potentially offend, you know, the actual community. So I think that's like also something to take like into consideration. Of course, it would be ideal for neurodiverse individuals to play the role, but if that is difficult, I still think that it's okay for actors to be like in the industry and at least like voicing this side through media, because it is still uncommon as of now.
Yeah, and I think it really ties back to like what the purpose of the show is about. And mostly when it features like an autistic individual, I think the trend is that when a show is featuring an autistic individual or their life, they are trying to raise awareness about neurodiversity, and there's this humanitarian purpose that ties along with it. And thus, if that is the case, I think the standard is like how genuine the portrayal can be, whether that comes from an actor or whether that is done by like an actual autistic person. But yeah, I definitely think that like the standard doesn't have to be whether like it has to be an autistic person who's acting or like an actor. I think the correct standard to put it is like if they can show like genuinity in their acting, and if that is the right thing that is being portrayed without offending anyone.
But I also think if we cast more like neurodivergent individuals in roles, might be a good way to like open up acting as a potential career option for neurodivergent individuals. Because right now, like the whole acting industry is pretty much like dominated by like neurotypical individuals, right? So like if we start casting more neurodivergent individuals, might be a good way to like offer them another career option. And like there might be many like neurodivergent individuals who are very talented in acting, but then we just don't know about that yet because like right now our industry is like only centered around like neurotypical individuals.
I think that too is a misconception that neurodiverse people do not have like social abilities like acting, and that's probably why their abilities have been suppressed, and the acting community has by far been populated with neurotypical people.
I think that's a great point, especially because like at Ridge or like in Basking Ridge, where I think most of us are from, we have a slightly better representation of autistic individuals, or like I think a representation that is a lot better than like some of the other local towns. And our like autistic kids in social skills club are being starred in our dance shows and are being starred on like our musical production and things like that. And that's been working really successfully. Not only do they do their job like perfectly and they like excel at it, but also in raising awareness for this exact fact that neurodiverse people can also do this. And I think it's a really good way to take it in both ways. And like Vivian said, it's a really good way to raise awareness as well. And I definitely agree with Hasni with what she said with like misrepresentation as well.
So, in such works that are considered to be like misrepresentations of the neurodiverse community, what steps could we take as like maybe community members or family members to help better the perception of neurodiverse individuals in media?
Another podcast reference that Mrs. Conklin had mentioned to us was just mere interaction with neurodiverse people was a very important and big thing that we could do to help them, because treating them as any other people that we would treat and the same behavior would help them a lot, and that's the least we could do, is what I believe.
And also, since there is a social stigma around neurodiversity that is still present in a lot of ways, I feel like sometimes there is like an over dramatic reaction from the crowd that whatever the actor does, oh, this is offensive and that is offensive. And I feel like it is also important for us as individuals to take a step back and reflect on, oh, is this actually from like a bad intention, or is this just like a part of diversity that they're trying to represent? Because like we mentioned in today's meeting, every neurodiverse condition is like a case by case like scenario, or like a case by case individual. And we cannot really call something offensive if that may represent any neurodiverse individual that like exists on earth. Like it might like not correctly represent something that someone's going through, but if that represents something that someone else is going through, I think that should be regarded with respect, and that should not be regarded as like an offense instead.
Yeah, definitely. For Extraordinary Attorney Wu, I know there were people on the internet who were like, the actor's portrayal doesn't necessarily reflect my experience, or things like that. But there were also people who said that the actress did portray their experience very well, and I think overall the drama was a good step into opening up neurodiversity into the field of mainstream media.
I think that's a big reason why we also need a lot more representation so that you're able to show what different people, like different people's experiences, because they're obviously not the same, especially because like what Nina was saying, it's like it's case by case. So I think having a lot more representation would definitely help with that because then people are, seeing themselves.
Yeah, going off of that point, I think one of the main ideas of shows is for having a more social inclusion and so that the audience feel included in something bigger. And neurodiverse people could feel included not to something specific. Like I'm sure not all of us could relate to a particular show about neurotypical people. And similarly, not all neurodiverse people could relate to one specific character or a couple specific characters. And it's just in the process of getting into, I think this is a good step. It's going in the right direction, but I don't necessarily think that this is the end, and there should be multiple more shows representing different types of neurodiverse people because that's a whole new sector of people, and it's hard to feel included with just a couple characters.
Moving on to our next question. Most of every show that portrays neurodiversity in some way tends to capture, as we mentioned before, a couple aspects of that neurodiverse category. So for example, there are aspects of ADHD or aspects of autism that are displayed in such main characters. So what are some unique aspects of autism maybe shown in Extraordinary Attorney Woo or in The Good Doctor?
Well, watch the drama. I was a very big fan. My entire family did. And watching, I think it portrayed the main character as the title states, as a very extraordinary individual because she was, top of her class, extremely smart. So I think that was an interesting aspect or an interesting take of just literally the smallest bit and piece of the neurodiverse community because as we've been stating that it's very case by case. So I thought that was very interesting because usually, I feel like in other shows, some